a big club, that the health care bill includes the implementation of the tax on any employer-provided health insurance. My former employer right now is doing the calculations, and it's going to cost me approximately $5,000 in order to obtain a coverage that has been projected indefinitely. And I think that the appropriate question on how it should come out, and perhaps I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, is not to have Paul Welday come out with this, but to have your strategy with the Republican Party to decide who's going to do it. It could be one of your strong endorsements, strong person. Did you know that Mr. Peters did not tell you that you were going to be taxed on your health insurance plan starting January 1st, and that's going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000 a year? Did you know that? Most people don't know that. My employer is working on the numbers now to tax me.
You've hit the nail on the head. You know, we have 10 years of taxes to pay for 6 years of benefits. The benefits really don't begin until 2014, after, interestingly enough, the next presidential election. But those taxes, they'll start
now, number
very
two.
soon. Yes,
number two, in 2013, it's my understanding that when you sell your Oakland County home that's been depreciated from $500,000 to $300,000, that you will be taxed 3.85% on the proceeds of your home due at the closing. That's another $15,000 closing.
Well, in addition to that, if the cap and trade bill is passed, your home, in order to be able to transfer title, will be required to meet a certain energy efficiency standard that will be imposed by the federal government under cap and trade.
So an approach by saying, did Mr. Peters tell you that this was going to happen? Why didn't he tell you that?
Well, maybe it is because these were 23 and 1,900-page bills that he didn't even read before he voted on them.
That's a good way.
I mean, and that's giving him the benefit of the doubt. Let's hope that's the case, because if he read them and still voted yes, then we really got trouble.
One can say you're sleeping on the job. The other one can say you purposely did it.
Precisely.
So
Precisely.
go to it, Paul.
Precisely. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I went through your comments and very pleased to see many of them. I have disagreements with some. I'm very conservative financially, extremely odd conservative, rather liberal socially. Neither party satisfies my interests on both accounts.
Right.
I did not see anything here about education and financing of education or advanced education. I recognize the need for investment. I've worked for some large corporations, as well as others, nonprofits. And while the investment side, for example, being able to write off in the first year your equipment, sure, that's an advantage, it's supposed to be, I understand. But there's another side to Michigan's position, and the position of almost any other entity or civil, public, whatever you want to call it. And that is the education or the level of education of its people, its population. Education is becoming very expensive for what used to be called middle-income people, who are now perhaps less than middle income as they were, say, 10 or 15 years ago, or when my children went to college. I would find it onerous to pay the same bills in the same institutions today. Leaving it wide open, what have you to say about financing education for people who just can't afford it?
That's a great question, and I didn't get into it. It's buried somewhere in one of those documents. But let me try to put it in a nutshell how I feel about education. I feel first and foremost that, particularly with regard to K-12 education, that is really a local issue, a local and a state issue. Education spending at the federal level has grown dramatically over the course of the last 2-3 decades now with the Department of Education, and we've seen no corresponding rise in the level of education achievement in K-12. If anything, we've gone the other way. So I think that the federal government, well-intentioned under things like No Child Left Behind, but what they did was they provided, all sticks and no carrots, frankly, and it has been a mixed bag of results. I think we need to look long and hard before we reauthorize No Child Left Behind at those levels of spending, given what we've seen in the results. Now, I do think that the federal government has a very significant obligation when it comes to education, and that is to ensure that we do remain competitive with the rest of the world. And how do we do that? Well, it seems to me that where we have particularly fallen behind is in the area of math and science. Anybody who's looked in them, my friend from Lawrence Tech can tell you that the influx of students from overseas in the maths and the science learning fields has dramatically increased. And not only are they increasing here in terms of the students we're bringing to the United States, India and China and other places with whom we're now competing are turning out masters and PhD candidates in these fields at a rate that is leaving us in the dust. So it seems to me that if the federal government wants to address things like education, particularly higher education, it needs to find ways to incentivize people to focus on the math and science issues. You know, I'm a liberal arts graduate. I studied constitutional democracy as an undergrad, and I will say we probably have enough of guys like me. We need good scientists. We need good mathematicians. We need to have great engineers so that we can build things again, which is one of the things I'd like to focus on. Finally, in terms of education, and as we go back and look at the things like the No Child Left Behind, I'd like to see us do something like educational empowerment zones, where we focus on those districts that have the most significant challenges in front of them and do some things differently. We used to have economic enterprise zones. I think we need to have education enterprise zones that allow for parental choice, allow us to have maybe even lift right to work obligations in those particular areas, so that teachers, regardless of their backgrounds, don't have to get a stamp of approval from the MEA. And I'm not criticizing teachers. They work real hard and they study hard too. But what I'm suggesting is in these districts in particular, something's not right. And we have to do something a little different. So that's it in a nutshell. Let me come over here and talk to this gentleman. We'll get back over there.
Is it true that in the stimulus bill, not the health care bill, the stimulus bill, there's a provision that I think it's 2014, the physician.
You've done your homework. You know the provision number.
BMI is going to have to be in your electronic medical records?
You know, I've heard something like that. I will honestly admit that I haven't read every page of that along the way.
That's why I raised the question.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Have others of you heard that as well, that there is a
What's BMI?
body mass index? So, I'm not sure I'd pass, you know, I mean, I'd be in trouble. I don't, they're gonna be sent off to the fat farm.
It's just another major intrusion by government into
Precisely.
your personal affairs. And I think, you know, the more that people become aware of that, you mentioned the tax consequences, the American public, they don't want government to be their nanny and dictate how much salt they eat and everything.
Exactly.
And so this was all done in such secrecy, and even the polls show that the vast majority of the public didn't like it then, they don't like it now. So if you can get in and along with the Republicans, you can't, I don't think you can feel it until you get a president that you can defund it.
Well, that's exactly right. You can defund it, and that is really the first order of business. You know, the health care bill creates about 150 roughly new boards and commissions to oversee every aspect of this new legislation. And Ronald Reagan once said the closest thing to eternal life is a government program, and he was right. What we need to do, it seems to me, is first make sure we win in November, so that we have the votes, particularly in the House where all spending bills originate. We get into the appropriation committees and we craft appropriation bills that don't authorize and spend money on these 150 new boards and commissions. Force the issue so that we can go back and debate real bipartisan health care reform and get it done right. And I do think bipartisan is important, as we said before. I mean, I don't want to see Republicans just go in and say, okay, we're going to do it our way now and leave the other guys on the sideline. I mean, this is just no way to run the show. Now, I will say this, another imposition of this health care bill, if you're in business like I do, they've now reduced the amount from which companies like mine have to issue 1099s to suppliers. You know, it's now going to be, if your business spends $600 with any particular supplier or any other transaction, you've now got to issue a 1099 for that particular transaction and report that transaction to the IRS. Why? Because they want more and more money. And do you know the compliance costs of trying to, I mean, everybody kind of shakes their heads, and particularly those in business, they know what it takes, and now to do this, it's unbelievable.
You've had to issue a 1099 at $600 for years.
Not across the board.
Individuals, but
Yeah,
not to other
okay,
businesses.
all right.
Exactly, right, and this is to all of the businesses. Yes, sir.
A political question.
Yes.
I can understand, looking at the 9th congressional district, and